So I talked to Omnipod. I talked to multiple technical support agents as well as a diabetic educator with Omnipod. So after a few weeks of having issues with my Omnipod 5 insulin pump, I finally have some great updates with you guys about what was causing my issues and how we overcame them and moving forward, whether I am going to stick with Omnipod or whether I'm not. So if you're new to my channel, hello, my name is Olivia and I've been a type 1 diabetic for over 20 years. And in that 20 years, I've made it my life mission to make living with diabetes more enjoyable and more sustainable. And as a kind of a backstory to me, my mother had diabetes and was diagnosed at the age of 3. And she did pass away when she was 56, so 56 years young. But growing up, diabetes was my life because not only I had it, but also my mother had it. So before I was diagnosed, I've always lived in a diabetic household and I've seen the struggles that go along with it. So now that I'm well into my 30s, I'm trying to make living with diabetes enjoyable, sustainable, and I want to help you guys out there do the same. So being said, I got started on DEXCOM a few years back, and then recently in January, I started my Omnipod 5 insulin pump just so that way I could get the best control humanly possible of my blood sugars. Previously to the pump, I was always struggling with extreme low blood sugars where DKA before of high blood sugar, but a lot of lows that EMTs would have to come out and help my husband get out of these critically low sugar spells. So I can report 100% true that I have not had any low blood sugar spells where I've needed medical attention since starting the insulin pump. Now, prior to being on Omnipod, I would have at least one episode a month where EMTs would typically have to come out or my husband would have to do extreme measures to get me out of some low sugar spells. But since starting the pump, I have not had that happen. So that alone makes it worth being on the insulin pump. But to fast forward to the past month, I've had some issues with the pump, with connectivity, with bleeding, and with the adhesive staying on my body. And I did do a video a few weeks back about being very frustrated with Omnipod because of the connectivity issues. And what was happening, if you haven't seen that video, is I could not get my insulin pump to connect to the controller. And I kept trying to connect new pods and filling them with insulin, trying to connect, and they would not connect through, causing me to throw away 4, 5 insulin pumps and all the medication that went along with it. So it was extremely frustrating, and I expressed that here on my YouTube channel. And I will be honest, I had Omnipod reach out to me to address what exactly happened with that situation. So I wanted to come on here and share with you guys what I was told and whether or not those recommendations worked. So what I was told, and let me just say, I have to really applaud Omnipod for taking a patient's experience and perspective so darn seriously. Because a lot of, let's just call it for what it is, a lot of companies only care about the bottom line and getting money, but I received multiple phone calls from Omnipod. And I really got the feeling and understanding that they really cared about my experience with their pump. And they really worked with me to resolve some of these issues. So as a company, I have to support the fact that they cared so much. And if you're looking to get on Omnipod, it's a very comforting feeling to know that you are getting an insulin pump from a company that really cares about their patients, you know? So what I was told was that they felt that I was having connectivity issues because it's Bluetooth. So they felt that I had other pods close or nearby that could be disrupting that Bluetooth connection I was trying to set up, or I can't remember exactly what he called it, but he said an Apple AirTag or a Tile, anything like a tracking device could also cut into that signal, causing it to be difficult to connect to your controller. So he had recommended that I first look through to make sure I don't have any devices that are tracking devices like the Tiles or the AirTags, but then also to make sure and root through my house to make sure I don't have any pods lying around that I was not aware of. You know, maybe I deactivated or canceled a pod and I never discarded it. And that could also have an issue with the connectivity issue. So that's exactly what I did when I got off the phone. I looked through everything. I did not find any pods, but I did find an old tile sitting in my kitchen cabinet on an old set of keys. So last night, to continue on with this story, this theory of this being the culprit, last night my toddler pulled my pod off by accident. And I went to put a new pod on, and now it's been pretty consistent that every time I replace my pod, I have an issue with connectivity. So I did what I was advised, and I put this into my freezer to break that Bluetooth connection. I put this in the freezer, and I had 0 issues connecting my pod to my controller. So I only changed it once, so I guess I can't vouch that I will never have a problem again, because problems are inevitable, and hopefully I don't experience a problem anytime soon. But it does appear that this was the culprit causing me to have connectivity issues, because I set my pods up right on my kitchen bar, and this device was inside that kitchen bar. So I do think that that could have been the culprit with me having connectivity issues. And also, the gentleman on the phone had explained to me the difference between deleting and deactivating, and you always want to make sure that you are deactivating your pod before you throw it away. Because if you're just if you're just deleting and not deactivating, then it's still active. So you want to make sure you're deactivating and deleting to make sure that this is no longer putting out signal for your controller, if you know what I'm saying. Another thing I had expressed issue with was the fact that this would keep beeping when I was having these sensor issues. So the night I'm referring to, I had 4 failed pods, and they would fail before I would even be able to get them set up in my body. So they would not even prime the insulin or anything of that sort. So I would try to connect through, and if you're familiar with the insulin pump, what you do is you break it out, and the first thing it has you do is fill up your pod with insulin, and then you hit next, and then from there it primes and gets your pump ready to go. So it connects it together. So I was having a problem at that step, and what I would do is I would be trying to get it ready to put on my arm to put it on to get it all set up, and it would not even get to that point. So what would happen was it would ask me to delete, deactivate, and it would just beep. A loud, continuous beep. I'm not sure if you've heard it. I don't want to mimic it. It's a loud, continuous beep. So I had 4 pods continuously beeping. I threw them in my outside trash can, and he explained to me that when it's making that sound, you can manually shut it off. Now, previously, weeks ago, I had talked to a technical rep from Omnipod, and they had said that the way to get it to stop beeping was putting it in the freezer. And the gentleman on the phone said the real only purpose of putting the pods in the freezer is to break that connectivity between Bluetooth. So if you were told that same piece of information, that's not how you get to stop beeping, which I learned that the hard way, because I did put one of these pods in my freezer when it was beeping before, and it beeped for like almost 2 days. It was pretty wild. But he had told me the manual way to get it to stop beeping, and I'm going to show you, and it's kind of hard on camera, so I will be describing. But if you see that little yellow gold dot right there in the middle, and you look to the right, there's a little like circle, plastic circle you can see. You can't really see it on camera. So if you're trying to, there you go, you can kind of see it. Let me see if I can get you right there, that little circle. And what you're going to want to do is take a pen and stab into it to break that plastic seal, and then get a pin and press that in to manually shut it off from beeping. So if you're experiencing that problem, there's your little hack of how to get it to stop beeping. But make sure you keep your pods just so that way you can give Omnipod the information they need, which can be found right there. So I'll zoom in on that too. Right there, you can see they always want those numbers. And that was one of the other issues I had that night, was because typically the controller stores all your information about your pods. So the numbers that they ask you for when you call into Omnipod. But since I couldn't even get them as far to get set up on my controller, I didn't have any of that information. I was annoyed. It was midnight. I threw my pods in the outside trash. So I didn't save any of the information they had needed. So going forward, now I know how to manually shut it off from beeping, because as a side note, I have 2 toddlers, and if you have kids, you know you don't want them waking up to this. That would make things way worse. But that's how you shut it off from beeping, and then make sure you keep the code so that way they can send you replacements out. And will say Omnipod for the most part has been very great at sending out replacements. And being said, I also, as I previously mentioned, my insulin pump was not pulled off last night. My toddler kind of grabbed onto it and it peeled off. And I went into Podder Central, which is, a website that you set up in the beginning of getting started with the pump. And I had applied for a replacement through there. So that way the step of having to call was eliminated completely. And it was no problem. I was recommended that by some people here on YouTube to try Podder Central. And I was also recommended that through Omnipod if it would be more convenient to use the website versus calling in. And I will say it was a lot more convenient using Podder Central, going in and manually putting in the pod information, the situation of what happened, and then I received an email shortly thereafter saying they were sending me my replacement out, which is super helpful. And then to top it off, they called me again this morning just to follow up with that complaint about the adhesive to make sure that I was doing okay, which was really nice, and also goes along with the fact that obviously Omnipod really cares about their patients. Another issue I was having with Omnipod was excessive bleeding when I put it on. Now, I know that, Tylenol and Advil and some of those drugs can cause your blood to thin, making it more susceptible to bleeding. I'm not on any of those things, but if you're experiencing that problem, I was recommended to pinch your skin when you're putting it on, and that should decrease the bleeding. Now, I have not been able to try that yet. This pod itself did not bleed at all, but now I know going forward, I will try that every time just to try to decrease the chances of it bleeding. And then lastly, I did want to mention that Omnipod was very nice and sent me out some overlay patches to go on top of my pod to keep them from ripping off. And a lot of times your pod's going to come off not on purpose. It's not, it's never on purpose. It's not their fault either. Like, a lot of it's more my fault. Like last night, my toddler ripped it off. Now, Omnipod can't control that. And personally, I don't want this thing plastered to my body where it's like a huge welt just to take it off. It's adhesive. It's basically a sticker. It's bound to come off. So I can't knock them for that. Honestly, I've had much better experience with my Omnipod staying on than my DEXCOM. DEXCOM tends to fall off more frequently than Omnipod. But I digress. I was starting to rant about that. I wanted to come on and just share with you guys my experience with Omnipod. And I will say I'm going to continue with this product because I was really pleased with how they handled my most current issues. I feel like they really took a look into me and my situation, and they found out what was causing the problem. They checked the controller, they checked different variables that could be causing connectivity issues. And so far, even though it's only been one try, I had good luck with it. And I do feel comfortable being able to call Omnipod back if I have another issue and then being able to handle it. So really, their customer service is what really took them over the top for me in handling the situation. So I have to applaud and thank them for that. Because not every patients should not be looked at as numbers. And I do feel like Omnipod looks at their patients as real people, not like their numbers. So thank you, Omnipod, for that. And I will be moving forward with my insulin pump. Like I said, no low blood sugar spells. And I very seldomly go over 300 with this pump. Naturally, nothing is perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect. So of course I'm going to still have problems with this pump when it comes to the activity mode and certain things of that sort. But for the most part, I will say my sugars have improved greatly with the insulin pump, and I've had a lot less variability in my sugars. So I hope that you guys got some valuable piece of information from this longer video than typical of me. I wanted to come on and just tell you guys about the information I got and what my plans are moving forward with Omnipod. So most likely you will see another video from me, within the next month or two regarding my A1C results and all of that, because I love sharing that with you guys. and I will see you guys in my next video. And if you haven't already, please give this video a big thumbs up. That really helps me and my channel reach more people. And as mentioned in the beginning of the video, my whole point here on YouTube is to try to help as many people as possible. So by liking my video and subscribing to my channel, you're really helping me do that. So thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.